So a quick note, this is a panel filmed live at the Asheville Herb Fest 2024. All of the intro stuff is a little messed up, so I'm going to redo it here, and then we'll just jump into the actual panel discussion. It was a little crazy. Ellen had strep throat, so I was by myself doing a lot of technical stuff for the first time. I think it's going to come out good, but like I said, it's a learning curve for me, and I was a little fried from setting up all the technical stuff. So I'm going to do the intro here. Let's start that. Hello, my name is Jennifer Braverman. Welcome to our podcast, Stories for the Earth, where we explore humankind's relationship and connection with the natural world. Today we are live at Asheville Herb Fest. If you will bear with me, I am going to read for a bit. So when we think about the idea that most modern medicines are created with one use in mind, and then think about how with herbal medicine, one plant can often be used in many different ways for a variety of ailments. It's kind of mind-blowing. For most of human history, medicine has been herbal and multifunctional. And now, in a very short span of time, our primary medicine has become very much the complete opposite. Herbal medicine is very much wild, subtle, uncontrolled, and multi-use, whereas modern pharmaceuticals are direct, fast, and strong-acting, created, controlled, and generally targeting one ailment. There are, of course, exceptions, with some herbs having one use or not many uses, or pharmaceuticals being used to treat one or more illnesses. But in general, the plant medicine is often more dynamic. When I was growing up, we used herbal medicine side by side with pharmaceuticals. However, I never really thought about how different the idea behind these forms of healthcare are. So that is part of what we're going to be chatting about today. We're going to be talking about several herbs that encapsulate the idea of thinking outside the box and how herbs can be multi-use. If you love what you hear today and you have an extra $1, $5, or $10 a month, please consider supporting us on Patreon, or you can follow us on social media. We have a Facebook group, a Facebook page, or on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest. We're just all over the place. We're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And your support is greatly appreciated. And we'd also love to hear from you guys. If you have a question or comments, cool stories to share, suggestions for podcast topics, please feel free to email us at storiesfromtheearth@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. All right. Thank you. Enjoy the panel. Bye.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Deanna Rose. I am a herbalist, but I also just grew up in the gardens and most of my life, and now I have, I guess, been an herbalist for around 15, 16 years. I love especially teaching kids, but I just mostly just take care of my family through herbs, and that's been really empowering for me. I went to the Blue Ridge School of Herbal Medicine and have also done a lot of self-study, and just excited to be here.
Hi everybody, I'm Byron Ballard. They bring me in for this because I'm your village witch, and I'm going to talk about the folkloric uses of some of these things, and I'm just excited to be on this panel with these amazing herbalists.
Hi, I'm Abby Artemisia. I'm an herbalist and botanist, forager, author, and I am the founder of the Wander School. We're an herb school in Asheville, and also a nonprofit doing herbal reparations work and starting an herbal free clinic. And I just want to acknowledge that we are on Cherokee and Catawba land, and probably other tribal nations as well.
Hey, I'm Jeannie Dunn. I'm with redmoonherbs.com. We have been local for 30 years now, and we choose to harvest the wild, weedy things that grow prolifically and harvest in peak season and process fresh as herbal extracts, alcohol, oil, vinegar, and more. And I have been herbalist since 2006, or between 2006 and 2008 is when I studied herbalism, but I grew up on a farm that went from tobacco to strawberry you-pick to produce, to my mom being a weirdo that ate dandelions in the 70s. So, you know, I did get it honest.
Hi, I'm Lori Jenkins. I am the owner of Sister of Mother Earth. I'm located up in Madison County, North Carolina. I make a lot of herbal foods, so I'm pretty passionate about eating wild things every day. I think that's important. And I do a lot of teaching. I got started late in life doing the herbal thing, and I wasn't raised by anybody teaching me about herbs. I just jumped in feet first and said, let's go. Took a lot of classes. I've had some classes with Abby. I just love teaching and showing people how easy it is to incorporate more wild and herbs in your everyday living. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for asking me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So, what does multi-use mean to you, and why would it be important for an herb to have more than one use?
I'm going to talk.
Talk. Do it.
Say it. I'm going to say it.
Do it.
So my nature is to just be frugal and practical, almost painfully practical. That's what my kids say. They're like, you're too painfully practical. I think it's important, especially in this day and age where so many people are struggling money-wise, the cost of living, how hard it is. I also think it's an ancestral knowing to use up. Think of my grandmother when I think about herbs. She was part of when the Depression ended and all these things were going on in her life. And, you know, she uses up everything. Like one day I walk into her house and she's got like a cereal box cut up and that's holding her napkins. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, it's just too good a box. It's the same concept, you know, use what you can multiple times. Buy one jar of, you know, cayenne and you can use do all kind of different things with it. That part of her was instilled in me and my mother and just kind of passes down. And it's just part of who we are as humans to make do, use up, wear it out. That's just how we are. So as far as herbs go, it's the same concept. Plan your garden with the herbs that you're going to grow because you have intentions set for them, you know, and you want to use it up. And I do see that coming back to a lot of people. Use up the whole hog when you kill it, you know, just ways to use up everything and not waste. We're so wasteful. And now we're actually able to see it. You know, when I was young, we didn't have computers and all this other stuff. I don't think I even had a computer until I was in my 20s. We didn't get to see everything. You didn't get to see that mass growing pile of stuff in the ocean. You didn't know that was going on. But now we get to see what we're doing. So I think it's even more important to be use less.
I was going to say how generous the plants are, and they're actually adapting to our needs. Like a lot of friends and other herbalists say, wow, I really called that in, or I wished I would have yarrow in my yard and I didn't see it all last year and suddenly yarrow showed up, or dandelions all over the place. Or during COVID, suddenly a lot of people saw lobelia and flata in the wild, and it hadn't really been there before. So I think the herbs like show up when we need them, but they also adapt. The whole what Abby was speaking about uptaking minerals and vitamins or toxic things in the soil. They can also be taking things up that we really need right now, and I think we're just scratching the surface on like we don't, unless someone sits and studies every constituent or how it was grown, it was a drought year. And so then that herb really shot up and wanted to survive. So those constituents, I feel like my intuition, without studying each batch that comes through, sometimes the best batches were ones in a drought or a really cold snap, and then there was a frost, and then these challenges happened, and the plant just got better and better.
I think it's really important that we come into relationship with plants and with the natural world. So we know, for instance, that a plant does a certain thing as people who eat plants or as herbalists. But the more you work with an individual plant, the more you will learn about it. And sometimes their strength is the one thing that you knew about them, but their side hustle is this thing over here or this thing over here. And the more we come into relationship with all of the natural world, but certainly with plants, I mean, a genuine relationship, the more we're going to learn about what they do. And we're going to find out, my pet thing is, learn 10 plants that grow where you are, 10, and really, really study them. And you will probably have cures for almost anything that's ever going to happen to you. So real relationships in the natural world, and you learn both from each other, but also from the plants.
Yeah, and I just want to speak on also just like you can read all the books about herbs and just kind of learn what everyone says and what the teachers say, but also there are, sitting and listening to the herbs, creating a relationship with the herbs. Sometimes you'll find something completely different, and that's how we discovered what they're good for from the very start. So that is the nice thing about herbs is like I'm still learning about the same herbs 16 years later. They can continue to teach me more. And that's just like the exciting thing about herbalism is just a never-ending learning, but also to, like she said, it's just like, even like Rosemary Glassdoor said, start with 5 and really get to know them, and then go to 10, and then keep going. But overall, it's just like there's listening to them, seeing what's in your yard and what is showing up, and just which ones you already naturally gravitate to, like even just what you naturally cook with, and going even deeper with them.
Thank you, everyone. We're gonna jump into the main topic, which is talking about herbs that have multiple functions.
I got added into this conversation about 20 minutes ago, so this will be very off the cuff and possibly 2 herbs instead of 3. Like Jeannie, I love local weeds, and I think whatever's growing around us is our best medicine, and whatever's growing in abundance right outside our door is probably the medicine that we need. And in my spring Appalachian tonics class just a little while ago, the first herb that I started talking about was dandelion, and I have a very special love of dandelion. I even have it tattooed on my chest. So I tend to love the stubborn weeds that will grow anywhere. And there are so many wonderful things that we can do with dandelion. I think one of the most important things is that it's an amazing food for the bees, and it's one of the first foods of the year for the bees. So in Asia, they actually grow dandelion on purpose because they know how incredibly important it is for all of us. So I just want to preach about dandelion and my love about it and how important it is for all of us. And it's a wonderful food. I love to make fritters out of the flowers. We can infuse it into oil. It's got so many antioxidants in it. So years ago, I heard herbalist Lisa Ganora talking about how it's actually a great sunscreen. I think it's more ingesting it than putting it on topically, but it has these great leaves, these bitter greens that are full of antioxidants. And so the more antioxidants we ingest, then the more protection we have from carcinogens. Great to remember those things. All parts of the plant are actually edible. So the leaves, the flowers, the root, of course, we can dry and roast and make tea out of. It's a wonderful bitter along with the greens and supports our liver. It also has inulin in it, which is great for balancing our blood sugar. So I remember it because it sounds like insulin. Inulin is a phytochemical that balances our blood sugar, and it's a prebiotic, so it feeds the probiotics in our guts. We all need that. I actually learned from Linda Black Elk in my podcast that you can take the stems of the dandelion and blanch them and then substitute them for noodles. Right? So cool. She said her botany professor did that in class. I was like, what? So I'd imagine you could probably use them as a straw as well, but I think you blanch them just so you kind of get rid of the latex. But the latex in the dandelion is good for warts as well, topically. So many wonderful things with dandelion. And they reach down deep into the earth and pull up those minerals, help break up the soil. So we do want to remember not to harvest dandelions somewhere where there may be chemicals in the soil, because they'll bring those up into our food, right? But we can make tinctures, we can make tea, we could make a dye out of the flowers, we could make bitters with the leaves, seemingly innocuous dandelion. That weedy weed. So I said to folks in my class earlier, right, the definition of a weed is any plant growing anywhere you don't want it. But if it's food and medicine, is it still a weed? My gosh, something for y'all to think about.
All right, so this morning when I was still trying to decide which 3 herbs I was going to pick, because there's so many. And so I looked at my kitchen table and I saw lavender, I saw sage, and I saw thyme, because I just got those plants. So I'm going to start with this round, lavender. So we know lavender as like great for anxiety, calming, and so there's several ways that I like to use it. I like to put like a lavender essential oil in a water spray and just kind of spray myself for anxiety, but also it's also really supportive for someone's having a panic attack. When people, you can spray them and it will help them return to their bodies. So it's really helpful for like bringing the soul back to their presence. Lavender is also great for acne. So you can put lavender essential oil with like lightly on your acne, or just through it like a milder olive oil or something to just kind of make it not too hard. But acne, or lavender, is really great for acne. And then also it is great for third eye. So just kind of supporting opening in that way. A lot of people think of it more as aromatherapy, but you can drink it, you can burn it instead of sage, you can bake with it. So yeah.
Mugwort is used for as a uterine stimulant. It is it's good for colic, it's good for insomnia, irregular menses. It is called mugwort because before the hops were introduced in Europe, it's what made beer, mugwort. All of that being true, I will also tell you mugwort is a mild abortifacient. So if you're pregnant or thinking of becoming pregnant, do not handle it with your bare hands or chew on it. I mean, it's not bad. Chew on it if you want to. So that's what we know about mugwort, and it's good for many, many, many things. But I want to talk to you folklorically about mugwort. So we have known for 1,000 years that mugwort is a dream tonic. So if you are a person who has night terrors, mugwort will bring them down. If you are a person who doesn't remember your dreams, mugwort will bring them up. It is an aid in lucid dreaming. It's an aid in trance work. And I use it, or I think it's aromatherapeutic. You put it in your pillow, between the pillow itself and in the pillowcase, and as you move on the pillow all night, the scent envelops you. So we've known that for a long time. It's a wonderful aid. It's a gentle aid for children who have night terrors too. You can ingest it as a tea. Again, abortifacient, be aware. Here's what we learned in the last 10 years about mugwort. Mugwort will ease open the doorway into the transition from matter to spirit. So if you are sitting by the bedside of your elderly grandmother and she is praying that Jesus will bring her home, mugwort is your aid in that. Now you can't use it to kill your husband, but it will gently open. In my tradition, we think of it as the veil or the gateway. It will open that very gently so that her spirit can slip through. And that's a fairly new thing for mugwort. So keep that in mind if you are the person sitting by the bedside. And if you are at home, it's easy enough to give Grandma some mugwort tea. If she is in a hospice or a hospital, you can do a strong mugwort tea and put it on little cotton dabs and do it on the pulse points and under the nose and let her drink that too. So that's mugwort.
I love yarrow, Achillea millefolium, something that was used way back when with the soldiers of Achilles, right? And so you hear that. You know, you hear Achilles' heel was a soft spot, but also that this was a vulnerary. This was a wound healer way back. And maybe Byron can speak on the magical properties. I have used yarrow, especially in dear summer when so many things are flowering, and worked it into a smoke or sage bundle. So because we do at Red Moon, and all my friends prefer, just like Deanna was speaking of, working something different than white sage that's being over harvested. So sometimes we would take Salvia officinalis, the garden sage, yarrow fresh, lavender, and go ahead and wrap that while it's fresh and make a nice smoke bundle or other, whatever is in your yard. But this is extremely aromatic. This is the one herb to carry with you if you're in the woods. So in the other class, which was herbal first aid, this is the star, the superstar. It is a throat spray. It is a great gargle. If you have a tooth issue, toothache powder, just like spilanthes and echinacea, yarrow can do the job. Traditional uses antiseptic, vermifuge, just like green hulls of black walnut. It can help with parasites within the body. There's just so many ways to use this. The root is high in alkaloids, like echinacea, so you'll get that. You can get a tiny bit of tingling from the flowering tops, but the root has more of that numbing of the tongue. But either way, just great for an area that needs numbing. We use it in an all-purpose salve or supporting reduction of inflammation. If you got a hold of some bad food, yarrow or activated charcoal would be the two I'd reach for. Put it in your repellent spray, so great as a cooling gel, just making either an isopropyl alcohol, witch hazel, or an edible alcohol. This is great topically and internally.
All right, so I'm going to talk about probably one of my most favorite wild herbs is chickweeds. Stellaria medea. Is that how you say it? Yeah. Okay, very good. So chickweed grows probably one of the first greens, if not through the whole winter. I mean, there's been times that I have picked chickweed in December here. Like every time I see it, I just want to lay down in it. It's cooling, it's soft, it's just delicate, it's beautiful. And it's usually growing in like these magical places. They look like little fairies would be running in and out of the chickweed. It's so great. But one of the things that I love so much about it is how many ways I can use it. Chickweed is very cooling. It's a great blood mover. That's why I think it probably pops up after a time of where maybe we might have been hibernating a little. But it does move the blood. You can use it as a seasoning just like you can with nettles. You can dry it, add it with a little salt, which I do. I actually add it to my tooth powder because it has those minerals. I put it in with the salt and add it to the tooth powder to add a little more minerals to your teeth and your enamel. It's a great herb to add to a salve to help with inflamed areas on the skin. I have actually used it as an eye wash. So I make a tea and let it infuse just like a normal cold infusion. Let it sit overnight and strain it out really good. You want to use like a nut milk bag or something like that. Strain it really, really good. And I have these little cups, eye cups. Has anybody ever seen those before? And I'll add a little bit of the tea and like throw it back, put it on your eye. Open my eyes a couple of times, but it's really cooling to aggravated and inflamed areas. Chickweed is also really high in vitamins and minerals, so it's great to add to a salad. I will say that, adding it as a full salad is probably not something you should do. And it will kind of upset your stomach if you eat too much of it, but it's certainly a great addition to add to soups, breads, salads, cheese and crackers. You can add it on. I've added it to pizza. Just chopped it real good and just put it on top of pizza. You could add it even to lasagna like you do young nettles. And it's just abundant, especially here. I feel like it's just all over the place. And you can even grow it in your garden during the cooler months as kind of like a ground cover or your garden bed cover because it will help the minerals in the soil. And then you can cut it and you can just cut it like you're cutting somebody's hair. It's so much fun to work with.
I wanted to talk about culinary sage. So there's a lot of focus on burning like white sage from out west, but I would like to this time talk about the culinary sage, the garden sage, or also Salvia officinalis. So I was first introduced to sage when I was in my grandmother's kitchen, my granny in Nashville, Tennessee. She would put it on her chicken and dressing. My dad would always sneak in a little bit more because he really liked the sage on it. Back then I had no idea all the medicinal benefits of it, and that's the nice thing about culinary herbs that we use a lot. They actually have a lot of medicinal benefits too. So the sage has amazing antioxidants. It also is great for oral health for your teeth. It's great for diabetes. It's great for memory loss. I've been talking to one of my friends and she's experienced memory loss with diabetes, and there's something connected there in that way. So sage can be really supportive. In that way, you could drink it as a tea. You could also take it as a tincture. You could also take it as a very high extract if you want to get as much as you want to get a high dose. And also in that way it helps prevent cancer. So if you want to take high doses to prevent cancer, you can. So a lot of our ancestors, our European ancestors, use this sage instead. So it's also a way to reconnect to our ancestry in that way. But you could burn it for cleansing out negativity. You can burn it in the air. You can, even just cooking with it can also cleanse, I'm sure, your body. And you can also use it in a yoni steam for your reproductive, for your vagina. You can cleanse yourself there with a yoni steam. So you can do that. It's really beneficial, especially if you had trauma. It can really support the healing in that. On that note, it also supports your throat chakra with communication and expression. So
Be a good one for today.
right. So it's just, which is not, you don't normally think about that with sage. So just kind of supporting your communication. So if you're going to have an important talk or with like this, or if you're going to have an important talk with your partner or husband or friend or family member, just having some sage within your tea or spraying some sage or whichever way you want to connect to it. You can even just growing it in your garden and smelling it every day, that's good enough too. Just so whatever way you like to connect is probably what is good for you. So. That's what I want to talk about. Yeah. And that was Salvia officinalis, the regular garden sage.
We don't talk enough about, I think, about trees and their significance, not only for their products, but also for their healing abilities. This is American black walnut. It is, I have its name here, it is Juglans nigra of the Juglandaceae family. Wait till I get to the rabbit tobacco. So it is traditionally used in Appalachian healing. The nuts, and you all know black walnuts, the black walnut is inside a great green husk. For years, I didn't harvest it, and my husband finally said to me one year, "You harvest everything, you forage everything, why not black walnuts?" And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, "Because it's man's work." So if you have ever tried to bust open black walnuts, you know, and he did that for 1 year because I guess he had to prove his manhood. And now we just collect them up, and mostly squirrels get them. So the piece I'm passing around came out of a flower bed because the squirrels decide that's where they're going to hide it, and then they forget, and they come up. So what we use that for in Appalachian healing, traditional healing, you took the green husk and you ground that up, and you usually put it with corn liquor, with a white liquor, and that was to take care of internal parasites. Yeah, it's unpleasant, but you got to remember we also used kerosene and mercurochrome, so Appalachian healing can be pretty harsh stuff. But I also want to share with you what we've discovered about black walnut. If you make it into an oil, it is good for opening the way. So if you are in a particularly difficult place in your life and you just think if only things would settle down, if only I could see a clear path ahead, to dress a candle with black walnut oil helps you to see clearly at a distance. So it has wonderful folkloric qualities, but it also has the marvelous quality of getting rid of internal parasites, and probably all of us have a little bit of that, don't we? Thank you all.
Another favorite of mine are nettles. I'm sure probably many of you are going to talk about nettles, so we can all say things about it. But I love eating nettles, and so there's stinging nettles. And in my class, I also talked about wood nettles, which is our native nettle that grows around here prolifically. It has a lot of magnesium in it, also iron and vitamins A and C and K. So we can definitely eat it. I do like to cook it a little bit because it has those stinging hairs. And the hairs have formic acid in them, which is in bee stings and ant bites. And so if you've heard of bee therapy, we actually don't have to get this from the bees. We can get it from the nettles. And it's anti-inflammatory. So though it may sting when you brush up against it, we can actually flagellate ourselves with it. It's called urtication. Or we can just walk through a nettle patch and it can help with arthritis. So it will sting in the moment, but it'll feel better later. And I have direct experience with this. It does work. I have tried it many times. It is super nutrient-packed tea, lots of chlorophyll in there. You can tell how green the tea turns. You can make fiber out of it, so you can make cordage and weave it together. You can make clothing out of it. Again, you can make a dye out of it, like dandelion. There's just so many wonderful parts. I was actually just listening to a podcast this morning with David Winston talking about how great the seeds are for multiple kidney issues. And you can eat the seeds also for adrenal fatigue issues. Supposedly, if you have severe adrenal fatigue, it's not recommended for that, but on the earlier end of adrenal fatigue. I do also dry it and grind it as a spice. a great way to get our nutrients, right? It's just make spices and sprinkle them on our food. So if you like gomasio, you could make it into a gomasio. I put it into my za'atar and add sumac to it and bee balm, and it's wonderful that way. And of course, allergies, right? Stinging nettle is more common for that, but I believe it has a lot of similar benefits. I kind of like have a theory that medicinally it's not as strong as stinging nettle because it doesn't sting as much, but I actually like the taste of it for food better than stinging nettles.
Is that the wood nettle?
Yeah,
Did you
wood
like
nettle.
You like wood
Yeah,
nettle?
I like wood nettle
Okay.
better. So if anybody likes Latin, that's Laportia canadensis is our local species here.
Avena sativa, milky oats, being such a good calming, nervous system supportive herb. And really, it's the first one that came to mind when Jennifer asked us to come up with something because of all its versatility. So a few years back, I guess my kids are 19 and they were probably 9 and 10 at the time, and my dad had done cover crops of milky oats and other things like peas, red clover, lespedeza. He puts that in the hay mix. He liked different things and he turned it under. He loves row crops. My mom's more a permaculturist that does the gardens around the house, smaller herbal perennials. But he had milky oats, and I'm like, oh, I learned about this in herb school, but I made a little, but, I haven't seen it around. And about that time, Gentle Harmony Farm, the first organic herb farm in North Carolina that I know of that's certified USDA, started growing it as well. And they were doing it as a cover crop. And I'm like, I went by to pick up some other herbs in Lexington. And I'm like, what? Are you turning that under? Can I pick it? So, and it was almost in the milky phase. So yeah, I'll pass this around, and you're welcome when you're taking tinctures as a group. It's nice if you put a couple drops on your hand or hold it well above your mouth. But shake that one because the milk does settle to the bottom in Avena sativa. But so they let me pick, and then they became my fresh milky oat source, and my dad was one as well. But that was a fun moment, one of those memories where 3 generations are picking together, and we're kind of. First, we were in the field shucking they go green, and then when they're about to pop with the milk inside, they start to turn a yellow, and that's when you want them. You want them before they go to brown and make an oat seed, which is what oatmeal's made from. But so we were getting them, and sometimes I've gotten them a little too young, and they're just not going to make the milk. They're going to be still just green pods. So the whole field can't be about to pop. So you try to want to pick, in that 2-week window, get the ones that are turning to the yellow and leave the ones that are vibrant green until they get fatter. So we're looking at 6 grams of protein per cup of cooked oatmeal. One of my favorite that I prepare just like this, so I'm using a big old handful of oat straw, which is oats taken in the milky phase. So there's milky tops in there, but with the whole straw. Take a big old handful, or you can weigh out an ounce, which is about 2/3 of a Pyrex cup, and pour that 1/4 of boiling water over it. Let it sit overnight or all day, strain it, and then you've got calcium-rich, magnesium too, and high amounts of the B vitamins, all but B12. But just really soothing, like a nice hot bath or some gentle music. That's what oat straw does for me. And milky oats in that, we do that in a little higher proof. A lot of our stuff is fresh with 100 proof organic cane, but with milky oats we use a little higher, like 75%, 150 proof, because it's so juicy and milky. We need to balance out the alcohol to water ratio. You want to use a mechanical hydraulic press with this, or a sausage press, but you've got to crank it good, or you will not get the milky part out. And it just really takes my tension in my neck and shoulders down when I just bunch myself up. Takes the crunchy out.
For this round, I want to talk about garden thyme, so Thyme. So thyme is really known for its digestion properties, so it's really supportive for digestion. It also has iron. And what I've been using it for a lot recently is actually making a thyme tincture. It shortens cold and flu. I think it might be a natural antibiotic, but I'm not sure. I've just seen it work every single time for me in this past several years. It's just like shortening the colds and flus with thyme, and it's so underrated in that way, which is interesting. And so I've also been burning it as an essential oil or using the essential oil of it in a diffuser to help disinfect the air. So if there's infectious disease around, if you want to disinfect the air, it can help disinfect that. And I'm sure many of our ancestors did that back in the day with just burning it. So you can dry it and put it in a bundle like Jeannie was talking about, but you can also put it in an essential oil diffuser too. And one more thing about it is if someone is mourning or in grief, you can put thyme into a bathtub, and it can really support the person in their grieving, in their mourning, and just kind of help release that heaviness. So it can also, purify your body and cleanse your body. And courage. Thyme is really supportive for courage. You have something important you want to do, you have an interview, or just maybe putting a little bit of thyme in your pocket. Just like kind of just put it in your pocket. And just kind of just embody that. And back in the day, some soldiers would put it with them, but just being a human in this world, you need courage for just going to the grocery store. So, that's it.
Pseudonephalium obtusifolium. And here's why it's important to be able to say big words. Because the common name for this herb is rabbit tobacco. And I've found 5 completely different species that are referred to in different parts of the country as a rabbit tobacco. So if you are serious about your herbs, you need to learn their botanical name, learn their Latin name, their big name, so that you can make sure that when you are in New England and you ask for a rabbit tobacco, that you are getting the same thing, the same plant that you would get here. So that's the caveat about that. Learn their big names. This plant, when we were kids, we smoked it because, all right, who in this room has ever smoked rabbit tobacco? We smoked it because somebody told us it would get us high naturally. In the 70s, that's just how we kind of went about things. So practically, it makes a wonderful tea. You can chew it, you can smoke it in a pipe. It's good for congestion, colds, some bowel issues. It is alleged to be an aphrodisiac, but here's what I love to use it for. I use it in conjunction with mugwort, with the Artemisia vulgaris, and mountain mint, which is Pycnanthemum virginianum. Well, my Latin's getting a workout today. And I dry the 3 of them together for a sacred smoke. Because like the 2 of you, I don't like the over-harvesting of white sage. Also, it's not traditional to my people. But sacred smoke is traditional across the world. So find the sacred smoke of your people and use that. The 3 of those things together smell delicious. They will lay in a big bunch of smoke. If you are smudging a big group of people, like we often do big festival celebrations, I have a bee smoker because I'm a once-in-the-future beekeeper, and I will load that with those 3 dried herbs, and I will smoke the whole area. Because if you have ever been at a festival where 250 people need to be smudged, it can take a long time, but with a bee smoker, it's like, and you're all done. The other thing about rabbit tobacco that I love sharing with you is that if you have small children, and I'm looking at you because you do, it is a plant that folklorically and traditionally attracts land spirits. So the little fairy folk that small children especially, and some big people too, I'm looking at you three, I know what you two are up to. It is a wonderful way to draw in those land spirits. So that's it. Thanks.
For a third one, off the top of my head, I would say sassafras, because I think that tree medicine is so important and we don't talk about it enough. And it's such an Appalachian herb, right? It just, to me, like if there's any herb that signifies Appalachia, it's sassafras. It's usually the root that we think of as this alterative tonic, so something that helps rid the body of metabolic waste and balances the body, so brings us back into balance. Just a common Appalachian tonic. And then, of course, there's this misconception that it causes cancer, but that's because of the way that the study was conducted. So do your research. The leaves, though, I feel like aren't talked about enough, at least in our region. In Louisiana, they know about this, but the leaves are what we make gumbo filet out of, or filet powder. So all you have to do is dry the leaves of sassafras and powder them, and you have filet powder. That's literally it. And besides flavoring it a little bit, they also thicken it. So I'll take that filet powder and I'll add it to my curries and stews as a thickener. And so you don't have to go out and buy arrowroot powder or cornstarch. Just use the sassafras leaves. Pretty freaking amazing. Yeah, and it just makes a delicious tea. I make a tea that I call Appalachian chai, and I put sassafras root in there with spice bush twigs and Carolina allspice twigs. Then you can have a local native chai. Sassafras, spice bush, and Carolina allspice.
Nettle's one of my favorite plants. It is so rich in so much. When we did a little study on nettles and vinegar, the amount of calcium pulled out, it was 4 times what naturally occurs in vinegar. So that was a 1 part fresh nettle to 4 parts organic apple cider raw vinegar. So it's neat to use it like that. Be resourceful, use it food as medicine. And I like to work layers of young nettle into lasagna or pasta and that kind of thing. I will say, when I was visiting some family in the Czech Republic back in the day, it was summer and I saw that their nettles wasn't really seeding out as much as ours, and I got really excited and I made a nettle soup and a nettle tea and a nettle infusion, which was a lot of herb in 1 quart of boiling water, and I let it sit a while and I worked it into several recipes. And then it does activate the kidneys in a negative way, because some of the seed may have come up and then it'd been cut by the mower or something, and it was aged nettle, and I had to urinate my way across Prague, so like 8 times in a few hours. So yeah. And of course then you have to stop for a beer, because you got to use the restroom, so that doesn't help. But so it did clean me out. My kidneys were very filtered. So, but the seed, like seed for prostate issues, I've heard, or as a kind of like more energizing. I don't use the seed very often. I know my mom would go collect it, and then she'd save it and dry. And I actually found like some in the attic from 2009 of nettle dried like this, and it still held its color pretty well, and seed. And she'd sprinkle it on her food. The nourishing infusion, when you do a whole big handful in 1 quart of water, let it sit, boiling water, let it sit 4 to 8 hours or overnight, and then strain it. You're going to get, 1 cup of this is going to bring 1/3 of the calcium recommended daily allowance. It has A, C, E, K, and other little iron. You can take the mark or the the spent herb, and you can dehydrate that and mix it with something like rampson salt and make it grind it in your grinder and make it a finishing salt.
Woad is traditionally a dye plant. It was replaced by indigo once we had access to that, but it still can be used for dye. But I wanted to share with you what we do with it folklorically. So this is the plant that the ancient Picts used to blue their faces to frighten the Romans. And the way they did it is they piled great amounts of it in a container, like a wall, a stone wall, and they danced on it and they peed on it. And by the time they danced it all the way down, the blue dye was in the bottom. And then they mixed that with animal fat and smeared themselves with it. So that's how we believe that happens. So here is what Woad is really good for. And Amelia, would you pass that around, please? I grow it culturally because it's important to me culturally. I don't use it as a dye plant, but I do use it to make an oil for dressing candles, and you can also put it on your hands too. So when you need to access, you were talking about courage earlier, when you need to access your inner warrior, when you need to access your inner Pict, when you are going up against indomitable odds, then Woad oil is your friend. And don't ingest it. I don't think it would hurt you, but you wouldn't like it. And it is very invasive, so if you were growing it, be aware of that. I brought it because not a lot of people see it or grow it now, and I wanted you to see what it looks like. It gets about 5 feet tall.
Byron, do you just do a regular olive oil infusion for 6
I
weeks?
just order the cheapest oil.
Okay.
Usually in the Mexican section of the grocery store, there's a really vegetable, who knows what it all is, oil, because we're not
eating. Okay.
So you're going to use it to dress a candle or maybe to anoint your palms when you're going in for a job or
So does anyone have any questions or comments okay, hold on. I'll come around.
When is the best time to harvest yarrow, and what color should I be looking for?
Fresh flowering tops, when they're in bud form and they're about to unfurl, the umbel's about to unfurl into flower, we found that those buds are really aromatic and super vibrant. So that's coming up on as early as May to July, because it just keeps flowering. The more you trim it, yarrow tends to keep being generous. What was the other part of your question? What color? Okay. What's in the wild, Achillea millefolium, is white usually. Sometimes you'll see a pink tinge on it in the wild. Those other ones, I was telling someone who was asking me, there's magentas and yellows that are cultivated.
I see a ton of orange
Really?
everywhere.
Is it in the wild?
Yeah.
Okay. Could be something with the soil that's making it change. Okay. So yeah, if it's in the wild, unless you think maybe a cultivar got escaped, naturalized, yeah. But it's worth a shot. Like, see if you get the same aromas and taste as a traditional white one.
If you're wanting to harvest the leaf, like fresh to make a poultice, like for instance, like I cut myself in gardening a couple of days ago, the leaf is really great if you chew it up fresh and just put it if you want to stop bleeding. So so you just kind of, and you can harvest that spring, summer, fall, and just kind of chew on the leaf and put it on wherever you're bleeding, and it will stop it. It stopped my bleeding. It was like I was hardcore bleeding, and it stopped it in less than a minute. So and that you can harvest spring, summer, fall.
Okay, I have 3 questions, but I'm sure they're quick. Okay. Do you have a favorite either medicinal recipe book, or is there a recipe book out there that you would recommend for using medicinal herbs? Because there's a lot of websites, and you just don't know which ones to trust, which ones not. I'm so sorry. Second, the mugwort. So my daughter, she does have some real horrible nightmares, etc. She has since she was younger, and we would clean her room, right? However, it continues. But I am concerned about the effect. She's young, 22, thinking about marriage, etc. How long does that stay the concern for abortion? Stay. And then one more, so deep purple nettle versus stinging nettle. Like we have a lot of deep purple nettle that I have used for a tincture for antihistamine. Is that it? Yeah, is that right? I mean,
Is that red dead nettle that's up in early spring? Is that what you're talking about? Or the deep?
dead purple nettle.
Dead purple nettle. Okay, yeah.
That's it. Those are my three.
Okay. All right. Book recommendations, I'll go first on that. Richo Check, RICHOCECH, Making Plant Medicine. If you want to just get the benefits of how best to make an extract, vinegar, oil, etc. Rosemary Gladstar has several. There's a family herbal medicine making or something like that. And then there's a bigger one that's hardback with a bunch of great recipes.
Yeah, I'd recommended that too, but I can't remember the name of the books myself. But it's anything Rosemary Gladstar is amazing. So
Richo
He's got a
Check.
second book out. Yes. Volume 2. So there's
Okay.
2 volumes now.
And then the
Mugwort, she shouldn't
Give me that back.
she shouldn't ingest it if that's going to be a concern. She can use it aromatherapeutically, just cut a big branches of it and stick it under the pillow. She also you can make a strong tea and she can do her pulse points with it, and that'll help too. She can put it in the windowsill. She can do whatever is going to make her feel like she's in a container that she has some control over.
And then the dead purple nettle versus stinging nettle.
It's a different plant altogether, isn't it? Purple dead nettle is a mint,
Not that one.
not that one.
No. I don't think we'll got them the wrong link. And then I thought it was for antihistamine. Dead purple nettle.
Yeah, I do think of those early spring ephemerals that are in the yard, like henbit and creeping Charlie or gill over the ground and red dead nettle or purple nettle. They're all great for upper respiratory. You can use them topically as vulnerary wound healers, but and they may have. I don't know of any research that shows vitamin mineral content, but totally yes, make a tea out of them, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you're getting some nutrients.
I was making antihistamine out of. Is that
That's the
Yeah.
best.
Is that
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
best use, I believe.
Those spring ephemerals are really powerful, and I think we ignore them to our peril because they're really, really good medicine and good food.
What was the botanical Latin name for rabbit's tobacco?
Pseudonephalium, Pseudognaphalum. The second word is obtusifolium, Obtusifolium.
Did you win your spelling bee? You did, didn't you?
I did, I was
Yep.
great at that.
Uh-huh.
that's impressive.
Yeah, so thank you guys. Thank you for your patience. Check out the podcast if we didn't scare you off.
Where do you find all the podcasts? If somebody's looking.
So we're on Spotify and we're on Apple Podcasts. And if you don't have that, we're also on YouTube. I put all the long form and short clips on YouTube. And so, yep. It's Stories from the Earth. Do you still you got it? Yes. Yes. And also follow these guys too. Oh. So. Yeah.
There used to be a big herb or medicine festival up here, the Midsummer Night Festival, or the Mid-South Women's Festival. Remember that? And it dissipated
Yes.
in 2019, I think. Just wondering, like, what kind of festivals do y'all go to or recommend, or any of those communities that are still around?
There's.
Go ahead.
Oh, there's the Wild Herb Weekend in July.
Wilder weekend?
Yeah, it's
It's in Valley Cruces.
yeah.
It's in Valley Cruces, up in Watauga County.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this is
Yep.
going to be phenomenal because the teachers, but Robin, are you teaching at Wild Herb? Robin Rose Bennett's coming, and she's a green witch like Byron here, and very fun to listen to. But there's some other good teachers lined up. I think I might be doing a plant walk, but I would like to get there early so I know what's blooming.
We
But
Oh, Wilder Herb.
Wild Herb Weekend.
What?
Wild Herb Weekend.
Okay, sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
That's okay.
It's the acoustics in this room.
And there's also a really fun one that's more casual that just happened a week ago called Wild Foods Weekend, and that's in Reedsville, North Carolina at the Betsy Jeff Penn 4-H camp, and I came from that. And we do a wild foods feast. You don't even have to come all 3 days. You can just sign up for Saturday. And we all go on a plant walk. We collect things. Some of the foragers have already collected, and they have concepts of here's appetizers, beverages, soups, salads, meats. There's so many categories. You join a team, you cook, you eat lunch at Betsy Jeff Penn for lunch, but then you cook together and come together for a wild foods feast. There's like, it looks like 100 things in the room. And we even do a display on each table, and that's a contest. It's really fun.
There's a new one I'm going to in October in Nauvoo, Alabama, called the Mid-South Women's Herbal Conference.
Yes, I'm from Alabama.
Oh,
I know the people doing that.
it looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joanna Mann is one of my favorites.
Nice.
I just moved here. Well, I've lived here before, but anyway, moved back.
There's also the Firefly Gathering, which is more in general like the earth skills, survival skills, or thriving skills. And I'll be teaching at that, and that has been moved to the middle of July. So there'll be a bunch of herbalism classes there still, and there's also like gardening and other ancestral skills there. But yeah, and that's actually going to be. It was in Deerfield's past couple of years, but it's going to be in Burnsville this year. Yeah.
And the Southeast Permaculture Gathering is usually in late summer or early fall. That's fun, very plant-oriented. I would love to see someone bring back Southeast Wise Women's Herb Conference in some form, maybe not as big. It got to over 1,000 women. So I would like to put that out to the ethers that come talk to Red Moon Herbs if you are thinking about, we would definitely sponsor that.
The American Herbalist Guild is having their big conference in October in Black Mountain, which is very great because every other year they have it on the East Coast, they have it on the West Coast, but it's never this close.
Also,
Yeah.
Medicines from the Earth is it June or July here at
June.
Blue Ridge?
I think it's June. I was looking at
Medicines from the
I
Earth.
was looking for my information.
And that one is scientific as well, but still fun.
Oh, you have a question? You want me to come up? Oh yeah, never mind.
To make that oat straw concoction that you were talking earlier about, how do you make it first, and then is that a daily thing that you can do? Because I can't get the milky weed as much or whatever.
Yeah, sure. Yes, it is a daily intake. It's a tonic. So you would make it and drink 2 to 4 cups a day. Just refrigerate whatever you don't drink. You can even take the spent mark and do another 2 cups of boiling water on that. I usually like to, when I do that with nettle or straw, go ahead and set it in the fridge with the herb and let it just stay there. It seems to get richer, the nettle gets greener, this gets more a nice yellow tone, the oat straw. So yes, it's very nice. 1 to 4 cups a day, totally fine. And some people will rotate between nettles and oat straw, and others like dried violet leaf, red clover, chickweed even, and they'll just use that as their multivitamin.
And is it just water?
It's just 4 cups boiling water, and then put the top on and let it sit, and then strain it.
Hello, everyone. Before you turn off this podcast, I've got some quick announcements. I do this too. I get to the end of the podcast and I'm like, "Ba-doom, I'm done. I don't need to hear anything else." I promise this will be really quick. This year has been a crazy year for Alan and I, and we've only had like maybe 3 full episodes. This is maybe the 4th. So I apologize for that. I want you to know that we appreciate everybody's listening and supporting us and everything else, and that we will be hopefully getting back on track soon. And so we'll have like maybe 1 or 2 regular more episodes. So we'll have maybe 1 or 2 regular episodes coming up this year. But also we're gonna have a lot of little like special episodes. Like we're gonna go a few places, and they'll kind of be like vlogs. So that's gonna be a little different. The other thing is that if you follow us on Spotify, you can now comment. You can leave comments on podcast episodes. So if you have any comments or questions or anything like that, please feel free to leave them there. We really appreciate it. We'd love to hear from you guys. So that is that one. If you'd like to support the podcast, we are on Patreon for $1 or $10 or $5 a month. That is really helpful and really appreciative. We are going to the American Herbalist Guild convention this year, and we can only afford 1 day because it's like $400 for the whole thing. And that does not include travel because this time it is in our hometown. So we would love to do more of that content. Sort of similar to what I'm going to have with the Herb Fest, which is going to be another episode, which you have not listened, maybe you haven't listened to it yet. So you'll get sort of an idea of some of the things we want to do. Anyway, some of these conventions are free, but some of them are very expensive. We are also possibly kicking around changing up the format of the show. So that's going to be interesting going forward. We'll see how that goes. All right, so that's it. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Sorry. Other thing is that I have been a little absent on social media, and I apologize. I will try to be more active. It's just, like I said, been a challenging year. All right, thank you. Bye.